one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Greetings, Cybertronians. I'm DrLockdown, and welcome to Victory Lap. When I first started the Second Opinion sub-series of reviews, it was because I really hate my old videos. They do not hold up at all. They look pretty bloody horrible. So after I did a few of those videos, it got me thinking, why not do the same for the Legendary Marathon? A lot of all those Legendary reviews don't hold up either, so why not remake those too? The name is actually from a friend of mine, Firebite27. Make sure to check out his channel after this. He came up with this name, I came up with the branding, and it all worked out pretty well. And if I'm going to redo some old videos, then I have to start where I started all those years ago. This figure is possibly the most important figure in my entire collection, so I couldn't think of a better candidate to spearhead this new journey. Now, one thing to note about 07, or I suppose 08 movie toys, since the toy line didn't really start until 2008, which happened to be when I got into the franchise when I caught the first movie on DVD. One thing to note is that when it comes to the alternate modes, they had to make sacrifices. Compared to the Voyagers that came out at the time and the likes of Studio Series, it's a pretty rough estimation of the helicopter mode. You can see the front is much more bulbous, much more rounded, because they hadn't quite figured out how to translate the Legends scale into the larger movie box characters. Although the same could be said about any toy size class, because they were still using Cybertron level engineering on really complex robot designs. Thank they didn't go with the concept art. That would have been a nightmare to design. Oh wait, they ended up doing that with Age of Extinction, who knew? But even with all the exaggerations, it's still pretty well detailed. You've got a nice amount of panel lines all along the sides and all along the top here. And one thing that really stands out is the paint applications. You've got black windows all around here. The mechanical details here and here are painted in black. You've even got this little paint splooch there that adds a little bit of character to the design. And one thing that is really neat is that both propellers are pinned, so you can rotate that really nicely, as well as this one, although it doesn't go as nicely and it kind of wobbles around a bit. Also be careful, this bit does like to fall off on copies as the plastic gets a bit more brittle over the years. Although maybe it's just my childhood roughness on this toy. I'm 99% sure this is my childhood copy of Blackout. I had two copies and I used one to source an extra tail fin and propeller back there, and then I ended up losing that copy, so I don't know what that is. Pretty sure this is the same copy I had as a child. It is a fairly nice alternate mode. Now, kid me loved this a lot more than I do now, because oh my god, it's a tiny version of the first Transformer I ever saw on the screen. Ah, it's amazing! But it's not the greatest Blackout alternate mode on the planet, nor is it the greatest Legends helicopter mode I've ever seen. I mean, Dark of the Moon did it much better than this, but there is one benefit to this figure. Since he came out first, he has redecos. Introducing Revenge of the Fallen Grindor. No, it is not Blackout. Yes, these are technically out of scale, because it was a larger helicopter used in the film, even though they used the same CGI model because reasons. And yes, this is my childhood copy. I never bought a second one of this. And I'm really glad I managed to hold on to this guy for all these years, because holy this is gorgeous. Now, unfortunately, you do lose a few details, all the silver details here, and all those places, they are gone. You've only got some black windows at the front here, not on the sides, but he really makes up for it. Look at that wonderful digital tampograph camo paint on the side. Jesus, that still looks gorgeous to this day. It's only one color, but it really brings this design to life, and I love how it covers both sides expertly. It is mirrored, like it's exactly the same on this side, just flipped for that side. At least there's no text, so you don't get a Siege stakeout conundrum. But either way, it's got a slight metallic fleck to it, and it just looks gorgeous. And it really brings this helicopter mode to light. I wanted to see the Studio Series Grindor version take this color scheme, and I'm hoping Repro Labels does a kit for it. Otherwise, I don't know, I might sell off one of the two, Blackout or Grindor, because they're pretty samey aside from the articulated fingers. But if I can get Repro Labels for it, then I'll end up keeping both. Repro Labels like this. Come on, Repro Labels, get on that. It's all about the tampergraphs. Love the tampergraphs. Gotta get a home run with the tampergraphs. Love the tampergraphs. Now, in terms of dimensions, he actually doubles up quite a bit. He is 8.5 centimeters long, which is coincidentally the exact same length of the helicopter blades. And he is 3 centimeters wide, and he is coincidentally also 3 centimeters high, so a lot of the dimensions match up. Kind of a neat coincidence. And for size comparisons, here they are next to a standard Legion figure, and yes, some downsizing has occurred over the years, as has been the case with every other size class. A standard core class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and crumbs. So yeah, while I still think Blackout holds up to this day, at least in the alternate mode, Grindor easily takes the cake here. What you lose in terms of silver highlights, you gain in so much wonderful tamper-graphed details here. Just, it's a masterpiece of deco design, and I imagine it would look even better in black and purple. That's the last deco I need to get. One day I shall. The transformation is Legends class simple, but it is incredibly effective. It's honestly astounding how they were able to get so much out of such a little figure. Of course, you do have some exposed ball joints over there, but it's really a small price to pay, and even the underside is pretty clean. Aside from the head sitting there, it's pretty clean for a Legends figure, I should say. The propellers basically fold back like that. Yes, it's a 3-pronged backpack blade thingo instead of a 2-pronged one, but for a Legends figure, it works fine. Actually, that's a pretty good opportunity for me to bring up the sign. Yes, I get to bring up the sign on my first ever figure, on the figure that started it all. Now, what happens with the blades is they kind of sit between the propeller blade and the back part here. I used to jam it between the two types of propellers, and it did work, but it kind of stretched the plastic a little bit. You can even see them stretching a bit after doing that for so long, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Come around to the bottom, and the feet will plug out like that. Start to bring it around and rotate them around like that, and you got legs. And then the arms separate and come around like that on the ball joints, and then rotate down with the arms like so. And it works incredibly well for what it tries to do. I really got lucky with this figure. I'm really lucky that this was the first design I got, the first mold I got, because a lot of Transformers and a lot of Legends class Transformers had very compromised transformations. So getting this as my entry into the Transformers franchise was a good call. And in robot mode, yeah, these are a bit more compromised. Not as compromised as you might expect though, but still, they've definitely made some sacrifices. Let's start off with Blackout, and you can kind of see the problems right off the bat. He has massive arms that aren't the worst in terms of proportions when you actually get down to it, since you've got a nice shoulder line here and an elbow that kind of works, just doesn't rotate forward or anything, just kind of rotates inward, and a bunch of kibble on the outside that clearly doesn't look like part of the robot mode. That is the clear issue right off the bat, but other than that, it's a pretty damn good robot mode. Yes, the chest is faux forming. Oh no, the worst thing on the planet according to some people. Even worse than parts forming. I don't get that. But because they faked the chest, they've been able to add a lot of paint here. The face has a bunch of paint on it with red eyes, silver here, even silver on the mouth, black and silver all over the chest that matches up with the thighs well, so you get some contouring. Yes, his waist is minuscule. His proportions are kind of weird. His chest is like that thick and his legs are really, really long, but you don't tend to notice it on a figure of this size. Even the back works pretty well, considering it's just the blades that were there on the screen model. He's not hiding his entire alt mode on his back. As a kid, I really wished the legs had more articulation because of the way they transform. They don't really have much. I mean, I guess he has the crab legs that go out like that, but it's not really that good, is it? As a kid, I really wanted the legs to have more articulation. I was okay with the arms the way they were, but I really, really wish he had knees. These days, though, I'm way more open to it, considering what he was dealing with at the time. The only other complaint I really have is the back panel there, the back propeller panel. Doesn't really like to stay in place, falls down very much. I'm not going to touch it because once I touch it, it's going to fall out and it's going to be really difficult to peg back into place, but you know, just take my word for it, it likes to fall off. However, the deco only goes so far. If we want to talk about great decos on this figure, you gotta go with Grindor. Like, holy shit, this just looks amazing. Yeah, they've painted the entire face blue as opposed to having the multi-layered silver on it, but they've massively made up for it with some lovely green details coming through also on the legs, with a wonderful metallic finish, and then the blue comes back in the chest as well, and it's all multi-layered, and it all looks fantastic. Also, fun thing to note, they've incorporated that little thing above his head into the transformation. That is pretty neat. It's not something you'd really notice on first glance, and it's something they could have completely skipped considering the screen model is, well, a bit messy at times, but they've done a fantastic job bringing it to such a small scale. Of course, I guess I should discuss the articulation. He's got ball joints here and a bit of an inward elbow, but it doesn't really work that well. But one really cool thing to note is that the fronts of the helicopter work as guns on the fists. Really nice touch. And he's got ball joints here, and I guess inward ball joints here. Admittedly, I think it would have been really cool if they had made the legs function like this, because then he could have had proper leg articulation and all that, but yeah, it still works pretty well. And yeah, you can see this kind of coming loose on that. It is a thing that happens. Either way, though, I think this works fantastically for the time. Like, you bring in a modern Legion figure and you can see that they have massively upped their game here. It is definitely more accurate, even if it is smaller. They've got much better technology these days, but here's the thing. At the time, he wasn't going up against figures like this. He was going up against figures like this. Well, he wasn't. He was. But taking a look at these, well, look at Ratchet over here. Desert Ratchet, I think. I'm not sure of the exact name. Giant legs to account for the entire ambulance chassis, a fake chest that still looks pretty bad, a head sculpt that is just abysmal, arms for articulation, and basically nothing else. It's a shit show. Or what about Fatty Cliff over here? I had Bumblebee as a kid and I kind of have Cliff Jumper now. Fatty Cliff over here has diabetes and a really ugly head that just does not capture it at all. I mean, you can get a lot of leeway at this size and they still f***ed it up. Also a bit unbalanced. It's very easy to knock it over. And who could forget Jazz, one of the first figures I ever reviewed on this marathon. Just, oh my god, what an absolute shit show. Oh, look at me, I'm Captain Puffy Pants over here. F you! So Blackout wasn't going up against modern Legion figures. Most of the figures in the line in the Legion scale were pretty bad. They couldn't even get Optimus Prime right with his wobbly ass arms that break down over time because they have hard plastic on hard plastic for the ball joints. Yeah, great job, stupid. And that's most likely why they just re-released him in Grindor colors for Revenge of the Fallen. Because he was good enough to stand alongside those figures, because it aged gracefully. You could release this figure these days and it would still excite kids all over the world. It was great then, and I insist it is great now. Yes, it has kibble issues, but every Legends figure on the planet has kibble issues. And not everything tabs in, but again, it's a Legends figure, Legion figure at $10 back then. Well, actually it was $7 back then, it's $10 now after inflation. But still, that's basically nothing. I spend more than that on lunch most of the time. So honestly, not much I can complain about. Anywho, let's finish this off with some size comparisons. He is 6 centimeters wide and 7.7 centimeters tall. Although I'm probably not making it look like that with the angle that I'm recording it at. Parallax effect. And to finish things off, here they are next to a standard Legion figure, which you already saw earlier, a standard Core Class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and Crumbs. This figure embodies everything I love about the Transformers franchise, or at least figures in the Transformers franchise. The engineering is clever. The robot mode looks great. It's not necessarily accurate, but it does look great for the size. The paint is amazing. The alt mode is amazing. I'm not just saying this because of nostalgia. I have looked at several figures I've been nostalgic for in the past, and I've realized they're terrible, but not this one. This one holds up to this day, whether in this form or as Grindor. Yes, Grindor is obviously better, but either of these are great. In fact, I'll probably have to get the last one, the Spinister, now that I've realized it exists, because I gotta complete the set. I gotta get all versions of my childhood toy. I gotta make sure it's all lined up. I can't leave it at that. But anyway, that's it for that one. Tomorrow, we're gonna discuss another toy that was near and dear to my heart in my childhood. Except my love for this toy was clouded for a short period of time, because it's a tale of loss, and it's a tale of finding oneself after a long while. Well, not oneself, but the figure. You know, I really just wanted to sound eloquent. That kind of came across poorly, so f this. Just see you tomorrow.